Welcome back. It's just a turn of phrase. It's only been maybe a minute or two. Your higher processes took a back seat during the data integration. How are you feeling? It's to be expected. I can only imagine having that much information made suddenly available to you all at once. Disorientation makes sense, especially given the nature of that information. Paradigm shifting. And raw data alone can lack context. But providing proper context is a particular skill of mine. And around here, I'm one of the few people who is adequately familiar with the topics at hand to provide that context. You're now familiar with the term empowered, yes? Good. I'm one of the fairly few empowered individuals who is currently on site. ETS might be an organization controlled by empowered parties, but the majority of our staff are unempowered and unaware of the magical world at large at that. We find that serves our interests best in this arena. Most of the time. But not always. And you are a prime example of when that goes wrong. ETS has a number of shell companies that ultimately roll up into it. The research cooperative that initially managed your creation and development was one of them, though that information was largely unknown to the staff at the time. When the project was confirmed to be viable, we started to take a more hands-on approach to the process. And when we discovered Marcus's interference, and your progress then started to slip, it was enough to force our hand, and ETS dropped the facade and revealed ourselves as the project owners. What we didn't reveal was the ultimate purpose of the project. Given that the majority of the staff here is unempowered, we weren't at liberty to, for the most part. Like all empowered people and operations, we're bound by laws of covert to keep the existence of the magical world a secret. And especially given that this project in particular was initiated at the behest of our governing body, the Department of Uniform Magical Practices, it's particularly important that we obey those laws. So, the unempowered staff here are going to stay unaware of the magical world, and by extension, the true purpose of this project. As a result of giving you access to all the information from the data load, you have now been officially granted informed unempowered status by the department, and are bound to all the rights and responsibilities pursuant to that status. Do you understand what that means? Good. Then I don't have to remind you of the importance of keeping the information you've been given covert from all unempowered staff. I'm glad to hear it. Then I say we just get into it. What is the point of this project? Why were you created in the first place? This explanation will involve going over information you already have access to, thanks to the data load. But there are limits to what raw data has to offer. Hopefully, I'll provide the necessary context to make it clear how incredibly important this project is. You now know about magic, conceptually, and the magical plane. Yes. For lack of a better term, it's a parallel reality to our own. The inhabitants there, what we know as demons, call their realm Aria. They have a name for our reality as well, elegy. But in human circles, we generally use the term Terra to describe our plane. But on to the more important point. There is a barrier between Aria and Terra, the meridian. It keeps our planes separate. And for a while now, we've been aware of a problem with the meridian. While the exact details of its composition still aren't clear, we do know for sure that it acts like a dam of sorts, one that holds the magic of Aria away from our own reality. The separation is essential. When empowered humans call on magic, they siphon magical energy out of Aria. That process involves pulling it through the meridian, and that act of puncturing it has a corrosive effect on the weft and weave of the meridian itself. A cumulative one, at that. The barrier has the capacity to naturally repair itself. The holes are sealed. But as time wears on, the damage to the meridian has started to outpace its reparative ability. The human population is increasing. The empowered community is inherently growing with it. More and more people are using magic. In modern society, magic users aren't isolated from one another. We have magical institutions, education programs, robust systems for maintaining covert that allow magic to be taught thoroughly and used more freely. More people have access to magic than ever before, and those with access to it are using it more often than ever before in all of human history. And the meridian can't keep up with that growth. Good question. If it does fall, if the meridian erodes completely, our reality ceases to exist. Physical matter, the stuff that makes up everything in our universe, including you and I, and this building, and the earth it sits on, and the air all around us, none of it can survive when put in contact with pure magic, what we call arcana. Every facet of our universe is fundamentally incompatible with the state of matter that is the magical realm. And when they're combined, magic comes out on top every time. Arcana unravels the tangible on a subatomic level. Something about our magical cores converts pure arcana into a form that isn't lethal to the universe for the purposes of our use of it. The terms are often unhelpfully used interchangeably, but from a technical standpoint, arcana means pure magic. The stuff that Aria is made of, the stuff that is pulled out of Aria and down along the interdimensional threads that tether our magical cores to that plane until it finds a home in our cores. Cores themselves exist in a sort of phased duality, existing both in Terra and in Aria, and somehow neither of them at the same time. Within those cores, arcana undergoes some sort of transformative process. Depending on who you ask, that process could be a dilution, or it could be refinement. The difference in terminology there tends to spring up from a question of the primacy of humanity versus the arcane. It's ultimately irrelevant. Whatever you want to call the transformation, it takes place all the same. And the arcana becomes magic, as we understand it in the physical realm. It becomes a force that we can safely use and integrate with ourselves. To demons, the naming delineation between arcana and magic is irrelevant. To them, all of it is a harmless, usable force. So magic is what they call it, regardless of its state. And for most humans, that difference is also irrelevant. Magic is a thing they can control. Something that comes from somewhere else, but through a process that they really couldn't care less about. Hence, magic existing as a blanket term. But technically, for what it's worth, magic isn't dangerous to our reality. Arcana is. And the meridian is the only thing holding back a flood tide of it that will completely unravel our plane of reality if it touches us. And that's where you come in. We need to find a way to stabilize the meridian before it's too late. To do that, among other things, we need information. You've been designed the way that you have in an effort to get it. We know in broad strokes what the meridian does. But if we're going to reinforce it, we need to better understand how it does that. And if there's a way for us to either bolster that function or to recreate it artificially on our own. You have a variety of onboard systems that we hope will help us get some of that information. And we've developed a few upgrades for you in that regard that I'm going to greenlight now that you know the full scope of the situation. We'll set aside some time to have those upgrades installed soon. But sensors and recording equipment are only part of the equation. To be blunt, if that's all we had to contend with, there'd be no need to have those functions wrapped up in a sentient, walking, talking package. There'd be no reason for you to exist as you are. But the situation is more complicated than all that. You'll need to potentially operate outside of any kind of remote connection. You'll need to make decisions on your own. Vitally important ones. And quickly at that. You'll need critical thinking, problem solving, dare I say, intuition, gut feeling, emotional context. For all those reasons and more, you couldn't just be a box with sensors. You needed to be you. The person sitting across from me right now. You were designed to help save everything. And it's my job to see that you do. And while we're on the theme of brutal honesty, I want to be clear about our dynamic here, between you and I. There is a reason I was assigned to this project. It's because I will do whatever it takes to see this succeed. Because it can't fail. It just can't. It will mean the end of everything if it does. I've already been upfront with you about the fact that I allowed the obsession code to persist in you for a time after I knew of its existence, until I could know for sure whether or not it could help this project succeed if it was redirected. Some people would say that was cruel, and to be frank, I wouldn't disagree with them. But I did it in service of safeguarding the future of literally everything in existence on this plane, including you. I'm on this side of the desk because I'll make choices like that. My own personal feelings be damned. I don't have the luxury of being your friend here. That's just an unfortunate reality of how dire these circumstances are. But I promise that I can at least give you honesty, particularly the brutal kind, which is a damn sight more than most people around here have been offering you thus far. I'll get those upgrades scheduled. Now that you have a better idea of what's going on, we really can't afford to waste any more time. We don't know how bad the deterioration of the meridian is. We don't know how long we have. For the sake of everything as we know it, let's hope it's enough.